All right, now to help us make sense of this pretty dramatic turnaround of fortunes for Keir Starmer, we're being joined by Mr. Adam Schwartz, who is joining us live from London. Mr. Schwartz is a writer and a political commentator. Mr. Schwartz, thank you very much indeed, sir, for making time for our viewers here in WION. Let me, in fact, start off by asking you this. He won 411 seats out of a 650-seat parliament. That was just 3 months ago. This should be his honeymoon period. But what we're looking is Keir Starmer stumbling from one controversy to another. What's going wrong?
Well, I think you're absolutely right to highlight the fact that, of course, the Labour Party under Keir Starmer won such a huge majority. But crucially, the Labour Party won that huge majority on only 33.7% of the vote, which historically is a very low percentage of the public to actually win, to win any kind of majority in Parliament, let alone such a huge majority. I think also even going into the election at the time, Keir Starmer had quite a low favourability rating for typically, someone who's about to become Prime Minister. So I think really both of those factors really leave both Starmer and the government typically in a sort of more vulnerable way than actually a new government with a huge majority might be. Now, I would say that, Labour has actually enacted quite popular policies really so far. It's initiated legislation to increase the rights of renters. It has started the process of bringing train services under public ownership. It's moved forward the plans to strengthen workplace rights. And all of those things, when polled, are actually show to be quite popular. But really the major issue that we're seeing is the fact that actually there have only kind of been two major stories that have kind of penetrated through to public opinion at the moment. And that is, as you mentioned, firstly, the decision to restrict, winter fuel payments to pensioners. And secondly, the revelations about the gifts and donations to Keir Starmer. I think those are both particularly bad in terms of optics for the government, because it's a government that actually came into power on the basis of promising change, both in the sense of changing the kind of austerity policies that were associated with public spending costs from the previous government, but also in terms of some of the ethics and corruption issues that we sort of saw plaguing the Conservative governments. I think, one major issue as well is that that's kind of been combined with what I would say is quite a surprisingly chaotic sort of running of 10 Downing Street. We saw on Sunday Sue Gray, Keir Starmer's chief of staff, actually depart the role just after a couple of months, really. So really, I think that has actually been a major factor that has impacted the ability of the government to kind of push communications going forward. So I think overall, in terms of what Keir Starmer needs to do, is needs to return order to number 10, of course, but also to kind of return to the narrative of the purpose of the government, in terms of a government that's trying to bring renewal, but also in terms of the kind of government's mission in terms of
Mr. Schwartz, if I can just interject there, the problem is Britain is, of course, going through a pretty difficult time. One was hoping that Keir Starmer would bring about some kind of normalcy and will focus on issues that matter to the British public. The winter is coming. A couple of years back, we saw these very difficult scenes of people having to make the choice between eating or heating. And here we've got Keir Starmer, who's now cutting down the allowances that are given to people for the winter. Do we expect economically for Keir Starmer to bring in policies that actually make it easier for people in Britain to tide over the winter?
Well, we have the budget coming up in not too long, so I think certainly we'll find that out. But I would say, in terms of what the government under the Labour Party is trying to do, in terms of trying to kind of restore stability to the country, really focuses on two major issues. The first, as you mentioned, is really the economy. We've had very sluggish growth really for a long time. Certainly if you look at the way that we've grown over the past sort of 5 years compared to comparable industrial economies, actually we've had very poor growth, and that's had a particular impact upon low and middle earners. So really, the government is trying to push, policies towards trying to grow the economy as much as possible. But I would say, in terms of the way that the government sees it, they see a return to kind of economic stability really as a kind of major cornerstone and a necessity to actually to do those kind of policies. But I would say, really, in terms of the government trying to restore the UK's position as a sort of prosperous, stable nation, really it's public services and the economy which it's going to focus on.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Schwartz, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.